Hey, what's up guys? So we are going to be going over the side deck for this current format. So these are going to be cards you can use in game 2 and 3, or you can even main deck them if you feel like you have a bad matchup against certain decks. Now let's get into the side deck choices, but before we get into that, I'm going to kind of talk about what the meta looks like kind of at the moment. So Girgas is still relatively popular, Dark Worlds, Insectors, Chaos Dragons, Agents, Merman Atlanteans, Dino or Macro Rabbit, Windups, Six Samurais, and there are still few hero players, not too much, but they still are available because everything is pretty much budget. But that said, let's go over some great side deck choices. Now over here in the green box where it says side deck, these are kind of cards that are, suited for most decks. Now, up here, I also have a lot of great side deck options, but those are kind of more so specifically to that specific deck, or, you can definitely use them against multiple decks. But let's get right into it. So, on average, Thunder King is pretty much fantastic against most decks. Like, you get this out against Windups, they usually have to go like -2 unless they have like a Dark Hole, really, to get rid of Thunder King really easy. But yeah, Thunder King is just a really strong opener. He's a great opening card. If you are going second or if in game 2 or 3 you're going first, he's a great card to side deck into. But sometimes when you go second, he's not that great to go into, especially if you're playing against like Dino Rabbit. Like this card going second, like if they already make a Logia, Thunder King doesn't really do too much, and especially since they can just negate his summon anyways. But yeah, I really think he's a really good, strong opener card. So he's great when you're going first, and you can potentially open up with Thunder King. Next card up, Macrocosmos. Now, keep in mind, if you're playing something like Merman Atlanteans or Dark Worlds, you probably don't want to side deck this card. But that said, yeah, those decks will pretty much lose to this card. Macrocosmos shuts down Insectors as well as Dark Worlds as well as the Merman Atlanteans. This card hurts a lot. Keep in mind, Exceed material still goes to the graveyard if Macro's up. Defisher, on the other hand, is different. That one will still allow the attachments of Exceeds to, go to the graveyard. So maybe if you're playing something like Windups, you can definitely use Defisher instead of Macrocosmos. It'll be much more benefit to yourself. But yeah, Macro is good in one sense that essentially Exceed materials will, not be able to go to the graveyard. But the downside to it is a lot of players will side deck cards like Royal Decree because they expect the Macrocosmos, they expect cards like Soul Drain. I've seen Dark World side Royal Decree, I've seen even players use Trap Stun, and that will, Trap Stun is also a pretty decent side deck card, but it's more so a side deck against a side deck. Let me show you Trap Stun really quick. But yeah, negate the effects of all other trap cards on the field during this turn, so it's kind of like a Royal Decree for one turn, but, Royal Decree can get Mystical Space Typhoon, whereas Trap Stun cannot, and if you're playing a deck like Windups, you can explode really fast, and then you don't really worry about anything. So keep that in mind, Trap Stun and Royal Decree, both of them are good, but Royal Decree can kind of shut down your opponent if, let's say you go first, and then you set a Royal Decree, they don't blow up your Royal Decree, they set like 3 or 4 cards, and then you just activate a Decree, and then they can't activate anything, and that can really change the game, like automatically. Right there, you've just won the game, essentially by just having Decree. But yeah, so keep in mind, you kind of got to weigh your options. The thing with Macro and the thing with Defisher is pretty much both those will get, MST'd anyway, so realistically saying that, chaining Macrocosmos, your opponent will just activate MST anyways. So you got to kind of weigh your options with this card. Next up, Snowman Eater. Now this card is just phenomenal against like it's good against Blackwings, not that Blackwings are too relevant in the meta right now. But yeah, Snowman Eater is pretty decent against Blackwings, pretty decent against heroes, good against the Macro or Dino Rabbit. I'd say this is the most fantastic card against that deck. This is probably one of the best side deck cards like at this format because Dino Rabbit or Macro Rabbit is one of the most commonly played decks at the moment. So definitely, hands down, if you don't know what to do with your side deck, just put in 3 Snowman Eater for starters. If you're going to a tournament, because in any tournament, you are almost guaranteed to play a Macro Rabbit player because the deck is budget and it's relatively simple to play. So, Snowman Eater, I would really suggest you guys to at least put one of these in your side deck. You will not regret it. Next card up, we got the hand traps. Now, there's Crow, there's Maxi, and there's Veiler. All these cannot be activated when Macrocosmos or Dimensional Fissure is out because these kind of need to go to the graveyard. So, keep in mind of that. Crow is pretty decent sometimes against Dark Worlds. Like, they summon one of their monsters, and if they only have one Grapha, you just banish the Grapha, and then they're stuck with a monster you can relatively run over easy, and it doesn't really put up a threat, onto your side of the field. But also against like Insectors when they want to target anything, like they want to get their Hornet, and you just see you later Hornet. Even against Chaos Dragons sometimes, I've sided in Crow myself. Because now that Red Eyes Darkness Metal is at 1, once you banish it, that's it. No more Red Eyes, and that kind of hurts a lot. But sometimes the deck can still OTK because it can just throw so many big monsters on board. But yeah, D-Crow is a okay side deck against a few decks, I would say, but more realistically, I'd say it's pretty good against Inzektor is really where it's at. Sometimes Dark World, but I think Macro is better. But remember, some decks can't run Macrocosmos, so you might not want to side Macro, so you'd have options for DD Crow. Like if you're playing Lightsworn, for example, you probably don't want to side Macrocosmos. You probably would rather just side in something like DD Crow or something else that would hurt Dark Worlds a little bit more. Also, it's not so bad against windups because there's Windup Rat that targets in the grave, and you can just banish their target, so it's not too bad. It used to stop the loop as well, the Windup loop, but the Windup loop doesn't really exist anymore. Maxi, relatively simple. Keep in mind, cards like Windup Shark and the Abyss Megalo, those need to be revealed in the hand, so you can chain Maxi right there, and then you're good to go. Also, Mind Crush, it would be an excellent example. This is kind of a card that works well against, I would say, windups, as well as the Mermaid Atlanteans. Some other decks do search out. Like I know with the Chaos Dragons, they go for the Eclipse Wyvern, and then they can add like Dark Arm, and then you can just be like, let me see your grave. Oh, you have 3 darks? Okay, see you later, Dark Arm. You just Mind Crush to Dark Arm. You do a lot of shenanigans with Mind Crush. Like Girga search relatively often. What other decks? Heroes can search because they always add Alias, and if you can like Mind Crush and get double Alias, sometimes it's not bad for that like kind of +1 because they get +1 with Stratos anyways. But you can also hit Stratos after they add it back with Shining. That's also an option. Mind Crush it's just really decent, especially with Inzectors actually, because whenever they add like the card with Centipede, you can just Mind Crush it and get rid of Hornet, get rid of whatever you need to get rid of. It's a pretty decent card against a lot of decks, and it can ruin a lot of stuff, and you get to see your opponent's hand, which is really what Mind Crush is amazing for, because not only do you kind of ruin their play, but then you kind of prevent them from doing any plays that you wouldn't normally see coming. Next up, Royal Decree. Now this is kind of a side deck to counter your opponent's side deck, so cards like Gozen Match are pretty good against windups, so they might side in Royal Decree. You could side to Royal Decree if you're afraid of Macro or Soul Drain. That's also an option. Most likely you'll probably be doing the MSTs, but you can do Decree, whatever floats your boat. It can work better for you. Now we have like Light Imprisoner and Shadow Imprisoner. Both these cards are pretty good. Lightsworn isn't too popular, but Light Pulsar Dragon, that is a card that activates in the graveyard. Also Agents, it's okay. They can't do some of their stuff. Shadow Imprisoner basically stops Inzectors and Dark Worlds. MSC is just kind of one of those side deck cards you side against your opponent's side deck. So when they side in their their Light Imprisoner, Shadow Imprisoner, you side in your MSTs and you'll be good to go. As long as you draw it. Next up, Soul Drain. Now this card is similar to Macro, but you'd have to pay 1,000 life. That's the downside to it. But cards can still go to the graveyard. They just can't activate their effects. And then it says that start a chain in parentheses. But yeah, so I think it's okay. I just think Macro is just better because it stops more decks. Yeah, the problem with Soul Drain is kind of the same problem I had with like Shadow Imprisoner versus decks like Dark Worlds, because when Shadow Imprisoner is out on the field, you can still bounce back for Grapho. Grapho can't get his destruction effect when he goes to the graveyard, but he can still just be bounced, and he's still basically 3,000 with the field spell. So kind of weigh your options that way. Next up, Needle Sealing. Now this card is pretty good, I would say, against windups. Pretty much what it's used against. Gozen Match is also a fantastic card. Next up, there's the whole like Cyber Dragon with the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. So you basically, against Girgas or any machine decks, you can side deck Cyber Dragons and maybe even side deck this card, or if you have extra room in your extra deck, you can just throw that in your extra deck. It's Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. So basically, all it requires is Cyber Dragon, and you contact with your opponent's side of the field, so it's pretty awesome in that aspect that you get to basically just clear their entire board as far as monsters, as long as they are machines. So he becomes, a pretty decent beater. But the problem with this card, I feel like, is that any good, Girga or, gadget player, I mean, if you contact with one gadget, like realistic, the gadget player won't care. There's a 2,000 attacker, and you don't really lose hand advantage because you got to search out with your gadget for free anyways. But the thing is, sometimes if they, make a misplay, they go in for game and you drop, maybe you drop a Gorge or something, and then you contribute the Gorge token, and then you could set the Cyber Dragon face down, because you can tribute set. Keep in mind, you can tribute for Cyber Dragon. You don't always have to special summon him when you have no monsters and your opponent has a monster. You can tribute set this card, and then you can contact, because you can contact face down. That's just another tip for you guys. It's pretty good. Lastly, I'd say, there's still other cards we'll talk about, but Spirit Reaper is also a fantastic card because Sometimes it can stall against Dark Worlds. It can stall against like Macro Rabbit. It can stall against Six Samurais. Chaos Dragon. Sometimes it just stalls. Basically, is what Spirit Reaper will do. So these are cards I would really suggest you guys to check into if you're kind of totally lost as far as what you would side deck. But let's get into some more side deck cards. These are kind of more specifically against certain decks, but there are more ways to use them. So System Down, pretty much just used against like Girgas. Oh, by the way, going back to Cyber Dragon real quick, the reason why I put Cyber Dragon here instead of like up there is because Cyber Dragon is also good against like heroes, anything that's just just big beaters like Blackwings. Not that, again, not Blackwings are popular or anything, but Cyber Dragon is just good against like anti-meta. Like Doom Caliber Knight, just special summon this, run over the Doom Cal Knight. He's just more versatile, whereas System Down, it's basically only against machine decks. But yeah, you pay 1,000 life points, and it's basically like Regeki, and it also like gets rid of their graveyard. But yeah, you do have to pay 1,000, so that's like the downside to it. But it's not that bad when you're gonna banish everything. Pretty decent card. That's basically using as Girga in any machine decks. Next up, Debunk. This is good against anything that activates in the hand or graveyard. So Gores, any of the Mermaid Atlanteans, that'd be good. Against Dark Worlds, it's good. But what I like about this card, it does banish it also. So, they're going for Grapha to pop. You're just like, no, I'm not only going to negate your Grapha popping, but I'm going to banish Grapha to the Shadow Realm forever until they Trance Archfiend. But yeah, also Compulse. This is good against Insectors as well as windups, I would say, because some decks are just too fast. Like, they don't care about your back row. Like Agents, they really don't care about back row too much because they can Hyperion and just pop all your stuff. Whereas like D-Prison would be good against like let's say Chaos Dragons, or D-Prison would be good against like Dark Worlds. D-Prison is not so good against Insectors because Insectors hardly ever attack. They always just pop everything and then go for Exceed and stuff like that. So I'd say Compulse is okay against Insectors because they only have like one summon per turn unless they have like Call of the Haunted and they have cards in the grave. So Compulse can be good against Insectors. It can also be good against things like Heroes because like all the fusion things, you just bounce back to the extra deck. But yeah, Compulse is a pretty decent card against decks that are just too fast, that like don't care about, like D-Prison, Mirror Force. Like Windups would be an excellent example as well, where Compulse would just be like, okay, see you later, Shockmaster. Pretty good card. Next up, Electric Virus. Another one of those hand traps, but it's more specific towards, this is machine or dragon monsters. I kind of like it against Chaos Dragons, because Chaos Dragons usually don't have back row, so sometimes you can just like take their Light Pulsar, especially in the mirror match, it's amazing, and you just banish their Light Pulsar for like your Red Eyes, or you can just, OTK them, because usually they don't have too much back row, so you can just take a 25 attacker and just overextend and win sometimes. But sometimes they do play Tragodia, so keep that in mind too. Next up, Leeching the Light. This is okay against Chaos Dragons, but I think it's most effective against Agent Mirror Match. When you get to go for Venus and get out Triple Shine Ball and Leeching the Light, one of their monsters, in the Mirror Match, like if you can Leeching the Light a Master Hyperion, this is basically a Honest for all your monsters, so it's pretty insane. But the thing is, you still have to get your attack in, so if they like Mirror Force you, it's kind of unfortunate. But if, again, you successfully get out Triple Shine Ball, and the Triple Shine Balls gain 2,700 attack apiece, man, that's looking like OTK status. But yeah, Legion Light, pretty good card against, I would say, Agents. Next up, Night Beam. Now, this card is, I would say it's an okay card against Mermaid Atlanteans. It's the only card I would say that, like, it's more specific towards Mermaid Atlanteans. It's a pretty good card, so your opponent can't chain anything to it. But the most effective way you really use Night Beam is against Abyss Sphere, which is the card that they usually chain when you activate like MST, and they can't activate it. So realistically, Night Beam is pretty much only seen against Mermaid Atlanteans. There's a few people that have topped and been using Night Beam just because it stops the Abyss Sphere, which is a pretty good card. Next up, kind of going back to Snowman Eater, like I said, Snowman Eater is just so good against this deck. Like, you just throw a Snowman Eater, throw a Spirit Reaper. Basically, you just want to get rid of, the monster that you need to get rid of. Again, if they have Dulka out, Dulka can negate Snowman Eater. Just keep that in mind. Next up, Windups. I'd say Gozen Match is an amazing card, as well as Needle Sealing. But if you're also playing Windups, you can't really side in Gozen Match as well. You would have to side in Needle Sealing. It's just more effective against that deck, I would say. Losing my voice here, sorry. Next up, Gateway. Six Samurais are still a very popular deck, so you would probably want to side in cards like Kinetic Soldier, or you can side in cards like Puppet Plant and take Xian, and then you contribute Xian. You can do whatever you want. This is brain control for free. But if they have Defisher or Macrocosmos, you can't activate Puppet Plant. But yeah, basically you just steal a Xian, steal whatever warrior they have. They pretty much only play warriors, so you can just take their monster and perhaps OTK them, just like you can with Electric Virus. But yeah, what I like about with Electric Virus and Puppet Plant, you're not restricted, whereas like Mind Control, you can't tribute the monster. But yeah, with Puppet Plant or Electric Virus, you can tribute the monster. You basically have, it's brain control, but you don't even have to pay anything. And also with Electric Virus, it's also a light, so pretty awesome stuff. This is Earth, so if you guess you were playing Grand Swell, realistically, not bad. But I really do like Connect Soldier. The only downside to Connect Soldier is that sometimes they'll use Hand of the Six Samurai and they'll pop him when he's face down. But if they do attack into him, man, he's 3,800 defense if they attack into him face down. And then you move to attack position and he's got 3,350. I hate that 50. It always messes up the math. Not that I use a calculator anyways, but it just messes up the numbers. But yeah, Connect Soldier pretty good against, I'd say Six Samurais, but it's also decent against heroes because heroes, they're pretty much all warriors anyways, and 3,350 is not anything to take lightly. It's a pretty decent attacker. Plus he's a machine, so I guess he doesn't have like a downside. I don't think anything would really affect him. I mean, it's not like people will be like, oh, he's got to side in Kinetic Soldier. Let me side my Cyber Dragon to counter his Kinetic Soldier. Like, I don't think that'll all happen. But yeah, he's a pretty good card against, Six Samurais, I would say, yeah. Also, going back to Six Samurais, another great card against Six Samurais, I would say, is False Dynamite, because sometimes they'll make a huge field, and you just be like, oh, it's cool, let me just set my False Dynamite. You attack False Dynamite, okay, it's cool, you blow up your entire field. Pretty awesome stuff. Puppet Plant is also decent against heroes, you can just take anything. Also, Kaiku is not so bad against Chaos Dragons. If you get one attack in, you banish the right cards, you just like pretty much win sometimes. And your opponent can't even banish from their graveyard, which is basically where Kaiku excels at his awesomeness. Yeah, banishing 2 cards is pretty good. I mean, if you banish like Red Eyes and something else, you just make it so they can't banish at all, and you banish their cards. And what I love about Kaiku, you can still banish. Victoria is a good card as well. But Kaiku, it really just puts in the work against heroes as well, because heroes, they just have Alias, which, can hit Kaiku. But your opponent can't even activate Miracle Fusion. And, for example, they can't even, get out Hyperion from banishing from their graveyard. But remember that Hyperion can still spawn itself from banishing from the hand, so keep in mind that's just also something to remember. But yeah, your opponent can't banish, with Hyperion's effect to pop cards, so I think he's pretty good against a lot of different decks, as well as Inzectors. Inzectors, sometimes they'll just they'll be Centipede, just get a search out, and then if you can, if they Foolish early on, they Foolish a Hornet, and they summon Centipede, they get a search out. Centipede's only 1,600, you can run over Centipede and banish Hornet, and it just puts in work. I think Kaiku is definitely a fantastic card. Plus he's 1,800, he's got decent attack as well. He's also a spellcaster, so I'm not sure if spellbooks would excel at this. As far as side decking against spellbooks, I didn't really mention that, but I don't see that many players playing the deck. I think more support's going to come out relatively soon, and maybe we'll see more players playing it. But at the moment, Thunder King just summon Thunder King, and if they don't have an answer to Thunder King, everything searches in that deck. This card searches this card, and if you throw out Thunder King just has no searching. But yeah, this is what you should be siding. I would say, again, check out the cards in the green first before you check out some of the cards above in the blue area of the deck, because yeah, these are more specific side decks against certain decks. But keep in mind, Compulse is kind of a well-rounded card against windups and other decks. So Compulse can be definitely used against multiple decks, but more so this side deck is for a variety of matches, I would say. But keep in mind, for example, if you're playing Dark World Mirror Match, don't side in Macrocosmos. Keep that in mind, and yeah, I wish the best of luck to you guys as far as side decking, because side decking in Yu-Gi-Oh! Definitely can completely change the game. Especially, remember if you're going first or second, too. That matters to what you side. If you go, second, you might not want to side deck cards like Thunder King or even Macrocosmos if you're going second. I've seen players, they don't want to side deck Macro unless they're going first. I've just seen it. I don't know how viable that is, but, sometimes if your opponent gets out, their play, Macro is just if they get a 3,000 attacker and you draw double Macro and you're going second, it doesn't look too good for you. But keep that in mind. Always remember, going first or going second definitely factors in what you should and should not side deck. But best of luck to you guys. Hope this helps you guys out, because I have a lot of you guys requesting me to help you out with your side deck. And yeah, good luck to you guys. But thanks for watching. Asian Eyes signing out.